I effectively was on my way to work, but it was unbeknownst to me. I basically woke up, if you will, in an underground train station in London. So I'm Johnny Macdonald. I'm 36 years old. I was born and grew up in the Middle East in Abu Dhabi, and I currently work for European Professional Club Rugby in Switzerland. I started playing rugby when I was about 3.5 years old, about the age of 24 when I stopped playing here in the Middle East in Abu Dhabi because I had repeated concussions. The after effects of those 3 concussions back to back just made it impossible for me to ever consider playing rugby again. It affected my day-to-day life. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't look at screens, I was sick, I was in my room with the lights off. I was in a relatively bad place. When I was then visiting back from working, I work in Switzerland, I met Dr. Omer and we had a discussion and he heard about my experiences and I met the wider team. And they basically, we had that discussion and they pitched why the Brain Performance Centre would be a great opportunity for me and the benefits that I could see from it. That conversation was obviously very convincing, but at the same time I'd heard a lot already from TAFE and I understood a lot about the organisation, what you did, what you'd done with Dylan Hartley, and I saw that as obviously being a rugby player. That resonated very well with me.
When did I first meet Johnny Macdonald? I think we'd be going back about 18 years. I was in my early 20s and both of us got asked to come out to the UAE and play rugby for the international side here. So I flew over from Ireland, he flew over from the UK, and as they say, the rest is history. Both of us retired from rugby with concussion, but obviously Johnny went one further and it was having more of an impact on his day-to-day life. And when I started working here at the Brain Performance Centre, I did my best to convince him to come on over, and I'd seen the results that it had with other rugby players such as Dylan Hartley, and I knew that he would benefit from it greatly. And here we are. So
I was working in London at the time. This was about a year after my last concussion and my stopping playing the game. I effectively was on my way to work, but it was unbeknownst to me. I basically woke up, if you will, in an underground train station in London, not realising where I was, why I was there, what I was going to do, and everything like that. That was the moment for me where I realised that there could be, and seemingly were, long-term effects that affect me in my day-to-day life.
Johnny actually came to our clinic with his brother. Kind of stories that really is etched in my brain, because to actually see someone relatively young, someone who's well-educated, someone who's able to interact, not being able to remember even the sheer fact that why they got up in that morning, they were going into work, it was a normal day and a normal routine. The fact that someone could go from the heights of what we would consider normal cognitive performance to almost, and it's harsh to say, but almost like a child, not having any direction, not having any awareness, that was really daunting, and that's the moment that really sticks in my head. And I tell this story all the time in the context of traumatic brain injuries.
Initially, when we did MRI scan, the initial scans for Jonathan, we saw some changes that we might see it from repeated traumas, micro traumas to the brain. There was nothing big or significant. However, when we added a SPECT scan to his brain, there were changes like decreased blood flow, or what we call perfusion, to areas like temporal regions and the hippocampus. And these regions are really important, mainly in memory and emotions.
With Johnny, on day one when I first met him with my physiology hat on, and I said, listen, this is where you are currently, this is where you want to get to. How do you think the path is going to look like going from here to here? So we discussed that it's going to be peaks and troughs, and there's going to be some weeks where you feel you're progressing and other weeks where you feel like you're regressing. So getting that buy-in early on was really important.
The hyperbaric chamber is obviously very exciting. It's something that not many people are aware of. So in terms of what I expected, I wasn't really sure what I expected. And the best thing that could have been done was coming and having a visit and seeing it. A massive chamber with these great comfortable chairs, the screens and everything like that. It wasn't what I imagined of being a small confined tube where I'm going to be locked in and drop below sea level kind of thing, which when you think about it in your head sounds quite ominous, but when I came and saw it, I realised that it's very comfortable. It's a safe place, it's a comfortable place where we could do some great work.
Johnny came into this program complaining and looking like he hadn't slept for weeks. And when we spoke to him about his sleep pattern, I think he probably will testify to this, it was all over the place. There were days when he would sleep for an hour. He spoke about having to take medication to help support him to get through that process.
The holistic approach that's taken here, I noticed lifestyle changes a lot very quickly. The very first thing I noticed quantitatively that I could put my finger on and be like, this has changed and certainly improved, was my sleep. My sleep prior to coming to work with you guys was awful, to be frank. Borderline insomniac, I would say, but really struggled with getting to sleep and staying asleep. I noticed with this that after 2 or 3 sessions, I was getting my 7, 8, 9 hours a night, falling asleep very easily, unbroken. I think with things like memory, concentration, attention to detail, things like that, I noticed those gradually improving.
Throughout the whole program, Jonathan was taking part in cognitive training activities, both in the suite and outside the suite. One of the main exercises that we focused on was the whole dual tasking, which we do on this witty machine over here. And with the whole dual tasking, what we were mainly focusing on was putting him under such high demand of both physical and cognitive strain. So we wanted to challenge him in that sense and see how he's performing under these circumstances. And with that, Jonathan absolutely excelled in all these levels. It's something that we're always talking about, and we're just so proud of how much he has shown a lot of determination, and he was so, he kept challenging himself throughout the whole program, and it showed a lot of grit, a lot of perseverance. So he excelled in all his domains, and that also reflected in his day-to-day life, as well as in the post-treatment cognitive assessments.
So we're treating the root cause of the problem, so the damage to the brain. What we actually do is using hyperbaric oxygen and the adjuvant treatments that we give around it, we're trying to bring the brain back to its peak performance, but by improving the tissue. We are growing new blood cells. We are improving the cellular function on the cellular level.
Once we've completed the treatment and we actually presented the changes to Johnny, and actually probably more so when he was away from the centre, I think a lot of the changes that he noticed came after, because being involved in a process, being here day to day, I think it's very hard to actually recognize or identify the steps that you've taken to improve for the positive. But I think when you're away from the environment, you actually realize at the start of this, I was here. And by the end of it, I've actually improved emotionally, cognitively, physically. So being out of the environment that you are day to day actually really kind of brings home those changes. And I think Johnny's case is a prime example of that very phenomenon.
The people around me were noticing that my mood was improving, my concentration levels, my memory, all of these things. They actually, my brother, my sister-in-law, the people that I was staying with at the time, they were the ones that first noticed and said, no, you have made improvements. And my ability to work, function, my concentration levels, all of those kind of things, they've noticed a change.
At the Brain Performance Centre, what we offer is not just how to best manage the symptoms you're experiencing, but how we can treat it and how we can make big changes to not just that individual, but for the lives of the people around that individual.
I love that challenge of having something that twice a week I went on after a chamber, running on the treadmill and having a challenging game that I had to do, and having quantifiable scoring systems and stuff like that, and to be able to say, I didn't do as well as last week, I need to do better, how do I push, how do I do that? And it isn't just a transactional relationship between the staff and the clients, it is very much deeper than that. Everyone knows what you're doing and buys into it, so you feel very much part of the team and part of the family, and you feel that everyone that works here is on that journey. Particularly with concussive-based injuries and things like that, everyone looks at the physical and the cognitive and the implications of that, but the emotional side of it as well, and how that's managed. And this whole treatment has actually brought back a lot of my childhood memories. I've had dreams and things like that were memories, not just dreams, but they're memories of things that have happened, of my late father, of my childhood, of things like that, which were incredible.
I think Johnny's case is also testament to the fact that the brain itself has such tremendous potential to heal itself, to regenerate, to improve, and ultimately improve the quality of life for a lot of athletes long after they finish their careers.
You know, today I met him, he's 5 months post the program, and he's just excelling in all the areas that he really felt he was lacking in before. So yeah, it means the world to me, and I'm delighted for him, and I'm delighted for everyone around him.
Sports that are prone for brain injury, which are all the full contact sports and most of the group sports that have a ball, if a child or a person playing them has a concussion and then has another one, this accumulates in long-term brain damage. And this is something that today we know that we can actually handle and heal, but they need to come. And they need to have the awareness to test, to reach out for help, and eventually find the right professionals that can help them. And it's not only on the players, it's on the parents of the children, it's on the trainers, it's on the organizations. Everyone can pitch in and help these people have a better quality of life at the end of the day.